So a couple days ago when I started making these more casual, kind of spontaneous videos, I said that the reason I was doing that is so that I would have more time to work on my website and changing the way that my content is accessible to people. And that is true. That is really the reason why I'm doing this. These videos take less time and I can focus on that. But there's actually another reason why I'm doing this. See, if I really wanted to take time off to focus just on this website, then I would just not post any videos. No one's actually forcing me to make any of these videos, and I think I'd be okay if I didn't post them, and you'd probably be okay too. It's fun to make them, and it seems like people like them, but I could have gotten away with not doing it. But I actually am making these for another very specific reason, which is that these are really good practice for something that I want to do in the future. By the way, before we continue, there are some people that are wondering how this new website's going to work, if I'm still at Patreon or you have to log in somewhere else, or what the deal is with all of that. And it's actually pretty simple. Everything is still through Patreon. That's where you sign up. That's where you log in. It's all still Patreon. But what I've found out is that I can put all of the content on my website, and you can log in through Patreon on my website so that I can design that however I want it and make it as easy as I want to find different types of content, which is actually something that's sorely needed. See, this is how it is on Patreon right now. There is one page with a long list of songs and lessons in alphabetical order, but that's as organized as it can get. Can't really separate things by key or category, anything like that. And it's a lot of stuff to scroll through. Whereas what we're working with on the new website is, again, a lot of posts that you can scroll through if you really want to, but your life is made easier by the fact that you can separate it into categories, keys, and styles. So for instance, if you want to learn a tune or instrumental in the key of, say, D, and you want it to include both melodic and single string, well, what do you know? There are some tunes that are in exactly those categories. If you want to start all the way over, no problem, back to square one, and you can start choosing more categories. Obviously, this isn't really groundbreaking stuff. There are much more sophisticated websites out there. It's just for the one person that's working on this stuff, me, this is gonna make my life a lot easier and hopefully going to make your life a lot easier as well, and hopefully gonna help you learn more about the banjo. And the thing that I want to do is make videos and content out there in the world where bluegrass and the banjo really happen, show people what it's like to be a part of the bluegrass community, and share some of the interesting things that I've seen and heard, and things that I think other people would find fascinating or even educational. But obviously, that's not really possible right now. The first major reason for that is because none of that stuff is actually happening right now. Because of the pandemic, it's not really safe to be out there at bluegrass festivals and gigs and jams and all that stuff. Even if they were happening, it's just not somewhere where I would be. The second reason is kind of equally important, which is that I don't really know how to do that yet. I don't have those skills. Now, don't get me wrong, I've spent a lot of time working with audio and video and editing and all this stuff that I need to be able to make the videos that I make. But here's the thing, all of the content that I've made so far has been in a pretty controlled environment. I set up lights in a certain way, I set up microphones in a certain way, I decide what I'm gonna say and play so that I can be really specific about what it is that I'm teaching. That's important to me in terms of the way that I teach things, and hopefully that translates to some value for the people that consume that content. But the content that I want to be making in the future actually requires a pretty different set of skills. And one of those skills is just walking around and talking into a camera. It's something that you've seen a ton of people do, but if you've ever tried it, you'll know that it actually feels a little bit ridiculous, and you can end up tripping over things. And there's also just stuff that it just doesn't feel natural. So that's what I'm practicing for. I'm practicing to be able to do this out in the real world and not feel like an idiot when I'm doing it. Luckily, for the most part right now, it's not that big a deal because I'm just at home, but that's the value of practicing, is that I can learn some of these skills now, and then I don't really have to worry as much about them when I'm doing it for real, when the stakes are a little higher, and when I care a little bit more about the quality of the content. And it's not that this video doesn't matter, it's just that once this is over, I can look at it and I can figure out all the things that need to change, so that in the future, I can make better choices and I can more reliably make the content that I want to make. So who cares? Well, you probably should, because this is actually the situation that you're in right now, whether you know it or not. For the last year or so, we've all kind of been in the laboratory as far as our practicing is concerned. We've just been working on this theoretical stuff that we might use one day in a real musical situation. Unless you've been lucky enough to be able to play outside with other people, socially distanced, a lot of the playing you've been doing, at least a lot of the playing that I've been doing, has been just me alone. And in some ways, that's actually really cool. It's given me time to really think about the things that I want to get better at and take a lot of time to practice them. That's fine. But maybe you've noticed, I've definitely noticed, that it's hard to know what to practice for in a situation like this. It's hard to know what should motivate our practicing. It's hard to know what direction that practicing should go and what end result we should be looking for. Well, here's the deal. Things are actually kind of changing for the better in terms of what's possible and safe. I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but at some point we will be back at festivals and we'll be back at jams and we'll be back at gigs in situations where we're playing music with people. So I think it's important that you take a moment and reflect on what it is you want to be able to do when that is possible and start practicing for that. And there are a lot of different situations that people are in terms of what they want to be able to do with the instrument. But my guess is most people don't want to just continue to stay home alone, just practicing things on their own, right? My guess is most people would like to get in a situation where they are playing music with other people, or maybe just playing music for other people. And that requires a different set of skills than just practicing at home, right? Now, you might be wondering, what are the things that you need to be able to do, and how do you practice those things? Well, I can't tell you exactly what you're supposed to know for however you want to play music in the future, but I can tell you how to find those things. So for instance, with these videos, the things that I want to be able to do, I didn't really know what all of those were until I started to try to make some of these videos. First, I had the idea of the kind of video that I wanted to make, and then I just kind of thought a little bit about, okay, could I do this right now? Is this something that I'm actually capable of right now? And if not, then what are the things that I need? Well, there are actually a long list of things that I needed to sort out beforehand before I could even make this first video, but I'm really glad that I did that because it gave me the tools I needed to at least get started. So the first thing you should do is just figure out what it is that you want to actually be able to do. In the case of these videos, I knew that I wanted to make more spontaneous content that I could set up quickly and I didn't have to plan much for. And yeah, that is a little bit vague, but since it's the exact opposite of everything else that I do, it really opened things up in terms of what I was paying attention to and what I was thinking about. And for you, that could mean a couple different things depending on where you are with the banjo. If you're just starting out, then maybe all you want to do is just start playing with other people, play at a bluegrass jam or play music with friends and just have that go okay. If you're a little further along, then you probably have an idea of the jams that you've been to or the gigs that you've had or these situations musically you've been in and an idea of where you want to be in those situations. It could be that you want to join a jam that was always just a little bit over your skill level, or maybe there's a list of songs that you never knew at a previous jam that you want to be prepared for when it's possible to play in that jam again. Or maybe you're in a band playing gigs and you want to bring that to a certain level. It's not that hard to know what it is exactly that you want to be able to do, but if this is going to work, then it's important that you be specific about it so that we can break it down and find out how to work on those things. And that is the next part of this, just taking the thing that you want to do and breaking it down into what the actual parts are. So then what are the parts, for instance, of the thing that I'm trying to do, making these more spontaneous videos? Well, you saw earlier walking around holding the camera and talking into it. That's a skill that will probably be useful considering I'm not going to be setting up with a tripod and lights and all of that. It's going to be a pretty run and gun situation. And if I break that down even further, then I need to be able to hold the camera steady. I need to be able to speak without planning everything ahead or writing down what it is that I'm going to say. There's a lot of pieces to all this, but the moment that I try to do one of these things, all of that comes flooding in and I realize all the things that I'm not really currently capable of doing. That can be a little painful at first, sure, but it's an enormous opportunity because now I can see all the little things that I need to practice and figure out before I start doing this. So then again, with the banjo, if you're one of those people that's just starting out and you want to just play with other people, well, what are a couple of the pieces of playing music with other people? Well, first of all, you need to play an entire song. That's how people usually play together. They don't just play the same 8 measures over and over again. They usually play an entire song. So depending on the kind of music you want to play, you should be able to play through an entire song, either knowing all the chords for the verse and the chorus and maybe a solo, or if it's instrumental, then know how to play the melody and some backup. If you're not sure how that's going to go already, then give it a try. Pretend playing with somebody else as if they're there. And if that doesn't go very well, well then congratulations, you actually have a lot of good things to practice for the time being. Another big part of that, something that I still think about and will always think about, is timing. If you want to play well with other people, then you need to be able to play with good time, meaning that you're not slowing down or speeding up, especially not stopping in the middle. You just have to keep going and keep that timing going. So you can do things like play with a metronome, play with recordings, play with a backing track. You could even play with a track that you've recorded of yourself, and you could plan what it is that you're going to have to play along with. There are a lot of ways that you can practice that, but no matter what, if you want to play music with other people, you're going to have those skills. And to get a feel for how that actually works and whether or not you have those skills, you might just have to fake it in some way. This video is me faking it. There is no real reason why this camera should be right here. There's no real reason why I just went out and walked across the yard a couple times. There's no reason why any of this is set up in any particular way other than the fact that it's different from what I usually do. And I'm trying to make this as spontaneous as possible so that I can deal with changing situations like lighting and sound and all of that. It's not going to look as professional as the rest of my videos, but that's okay because I'm building skills for another situation that's hopefully going to be professional in a different way. Now, back to the banjo. If you're a little further along in your progress, then you've probably played with other people. You can play in time. You've got some solos that you know, and maybe you know a bunch of songs. Well, you have an idea of what it is you'd like to be able to do. Maybe there's this other list of songs that you haven't tackled yet from the jams that you go to. Or maybe there's songs that come up that are a little faster than what you're used to. Or maybe you just want to get better at something that you don't already know. You know, at a jam when somebody wants to play a song that you don't know yet, that's actually a skill, being able to play something that you haven't learned yet by following the other players or just using your ear to figure out what the chords and the melody are. And by the way, these are all things that I'm hoping to make detailed lessons about in the future. I just think it's good for people to be in a mindset now to prepare for that inevitable future that we're all going to have, where we're thrust into the real musical world, which we may not have been practicing for. So for the sake of practice, let's make one more quick change of scenery. This is something I'm going to have to do a lot when I'm making these kinds of videos because, for instance, if I'm walking from the indoors to the outdoors, the light changes, things are going to look different. I might have to change camera settings. And I'm really glad that I'm doing that work right now because if I waited until, say, I was actually at a bluegrass festival to try doing something like this, then it probably wouldn't go very well. I'd have no experience with all the skills that I need. I can't really know what that's going to be like, but I can fake it. And you may not know exactly what it's going to be like to do the thing that you want to do, but you can try to fake it by being really specific about what it is you want to do and breaking that down into all the skills that you can observe when you see somebody else do it, or when you see a lesson about it, or when you hear somebody talk about it. And of course, we don't really know exactly when these skills are going to be put to the test, but the clock is ticking. And actually, it always has been. There's always been an opportunity to prepare for the future in some way, even if we don't know exactly what that future looks like or what that timeline looks like. And this is actually what keeps me really excited about the stuff that I'm working on, because there's kind of an alternate universe version of my life where I'm not really making content that I'm interested in, just things that I know will help me make a living. I could have done that and it would have been less work and it would have been a little less scary because I wouldn't be putting myself out there in a vulnerable way, right? But I actually feel like I'm making progress on something that I want to be able to do, which gives me kind of a purpose. So if you're wondering how to have a little bit more of a purpose when you're practicing the banjo, practice for something. Don't just practice. Practice for the thing that you want to be able to do, even if that's years away, even if it's going to take years for you to develop into the banjo player that you want to be. I'm thinking it's going to take me another 50 years at least. But anyway, another thing that I have to practice is editing videos, like for instance, this video. So that's going to do it for this one. I'll see you next time.